Hello everyone, my name is Lena and welcome back to my channel. The Starseekers universe has always had time shenanigans, and while on the surface that's not being shown here in the Frost music video, it actually is. Previously, we've seen many loops, dead ends, and rewinds in TXT's storyline. In Runaway, it showed the boys rewinding time to have fun, not concerned about the consequences of their actions. In the song, Can't We Just Leave the Monster Alive, it references the fact that they know what the ending is, facing the monster, with undertones of them possibly understanding that that means also defeat, which we've seen many times over. But in that song, they just want to do it again and again and have fun within the game, within this dungeon. Of course, we understand as an audience, and we are shown that these loops and this fun that they're having is not without consequence. They're not as harmless as they first seem. Hints here and there show that there's something darker going on that they don't understand. The butterfly effect of all their actions and rewinds, something that this music video actually opens with referencing. The opening scene features a cluster of blue butterflies grouping together, which is something that butterflies in general do when they're cold, because being insects, when their cold sets in, they can't really move, at least not quickly, and so they bunch together to look more, menacing to any predators. Just if you were curious. But beyond adding to the idea that their island, which had previously been shown to be on fire, is now freezing, this whole butterfly thing adds another layer to it, especially if you've ever followed G-Friend, who were previously in the HYBE universe. And it might mean interesting things for TXT as well, especially since the blue butterflies aren't the only aspect of G-Friend's story to appear in this video. So G-Friend's central story focused on their internal struggle together, and how they kept going back in time in order to fix a broken friendship, and continuously failing to do so. The main thing about going back in time was that they had to use these blue butterflies, which were gifted to them with a warning. If they used all the butterflies, their glass beads, similar to the one that SOOBIN holds, would turn black. Now, they were actually born with these glass beads, but the purpose of them is never directly explained in the G-Friend story. But I'll cover that in more detail in a little bit. Basically, once these glass beads turned black, not only would them rewinding time not be possible, since all the blue butterflies would be used up, but they also became witches, out to seek revenge on whoever put them in this state. In their final release, Mago, they escaped this fairy tale ending. However, I don't think TXT are so lucky. We know TXT have been doing a lot of time traveling, and while it seems like the blue butterflies aren't what TXT is using to go back in time, seeing them just seems like a good reminder to us that yes, the butterflies are there, there's time shenanigans happening, the butterfly effect is real, and it's a very present part of the story. I wouldn't be surprised if they come back in another way. In G-Friend's story, they were simply using the power of the blue butterflies to turn back time, but that wasn't necessarily the only function of the blue butterflies. It just could be used to turn back time. TXT seemed to be able to do that without them, so anyways, let's talk some more about things that we do know, like the location of the music video. So I've spoken a lot about Magic Island in the past, and this is the main location that this music video takes place in. The lyrics also confirm this fact with references to a dream island. So Magic Island is this place that the boys discovered originally when they were young, but now they've discovered the magic again as teenagers on the cusp of adulthood. And this is sort of like a fantastical allegory for not wanting to grow up or not wanting to face the realities of adulthood and society. TXT in their story are afraid of growing up, and thus they spend their days rewinding, going back to their magic island and then starting over again. And I think this is what we see the music video starting off with. They are in the train station, Tuksum specifically. Tuksum Park has actually been previously shown as being the physical location for TXT's Magic Island, and also possibly BTS's, but I won't get into that here. But they're also taking a train to this location in the Magic Island music video when we first see them directly going to this magic island. In this music video, when they are there, they're in the station, and outside the windows we see it kind of looks like the apocalypse is happening. This is very reminiscent of the colors that we see in the Doom's Night when the dragon is attacking. And I do wonder, perhaps that's what's happening. I do think that they actually rewind time again from this point, just not in a way that we find noticeable. Because while those dark scenes seem to show a more nighttime view, we actually see a news broadcast that states that it's 11 a.m. and it does feature a sinkhole. 11 a.m., by the way, is most likely a reference to Harry Potter. Not only did they also reference this in the Magic Island music video, but in Harry Potter, this was the time that the train left the platform for the station to go to Hogwarts, the platform for the station to go to Hogwarts. It was the time the Hogwarts Express left.
The train leaves at exactly 11 o'clock. We've missed it.
So I think that this happens around that point, before everything gets really bad. Hence why it is so beautiful looking outside, despite the apparent sinkhole that has already appeared in Tuksum Park. Sinkholes, by the way, have been shown in the Hype universe before. Obviously, TXT has had quite a few references to different holes that exist, either holes that they fall into or actual sinkholes that they've shown previously. But in BTS's The Notes, it is described by Jungkook in year 12 sees a sinkhole as well. He feels drawn in. He also mentions seeing something sparkling at the bottom, and it is implied that there's a wormhole down there, like with a hole within a hole kind of thing. So this sparkling was either from the wormhole, which we see when TXT uses does have like a more sparkly effect, or it was like one of the beads that TXT is using in this music video. Which of course brings me to our next part, the glass beads. So TXT uses this magical looking bead to get to their magic island. This is really interesting because this bead seems to have like multiple uses, because later we see SOOBIN looking through it, but more on that in a second. Let's look at what we do know about the glass beads in the HYBE universe. In GFriend, the beads were something that they were born with. I've previously related this to the idea of like their soul, since corrupting them also corrupts the girls. However, LAMEGAMEHERO, who is a patron and member of our Discord server, actually made the connection with beads and specifically memories. So credit to her with that idea. Memories themselves are a huge part of GFriend and TXT's storyline, and corrupting the bead in GFriend's story actually leads to them losing their memories altogether, which is when they became witches. But I think I can relate that to TXT here as well. We know that they probably know what Magic Island is, at least to some degree, and we've already established that they are rewinding time together. So they have this memory of Magic Island for sure. But previously, there was established that there was a particular way to get to Magic Island, which involved like closing your eyes and then opening and you were there. They used the train to do this in the Magic Island music video. Yet, here they are simply coming to Tuksum, the location of their island, and when the trains are clearly not running, if the sinkhole is any indication, and they're not doing this at all. But remember, the bead is centered on memories, and we do see the like light of this wormhole appearing in Taehyun's eye as he watches the wormhole that they create appear. So is it the memory of this location that allows them to actually go there? When they're finally back on the island, SOOBIN brings the bead up to his eye and looks through it. It's important to note that within the music video itself, the scenes that all take place after this are kind of covered with this effect that looks like we're also looking through the glass bead. Now, looking inside beads for TXT isn't completely new. We saw it before in the Japanese Runaway music video, where it showed a memory of them all together. And with GFriend, we've seen Una pick up a glass bead, look through it, and possibly see the memory of her friends fighting, which again is something that they were trying to stop. So when SOOBIN looks through the bead, I think he's seeing the first time that they came to the island. All these memories are later called back upon in the music video, and I will go over each of these in more detail in a little bit, but I do think it's important to note that these things weren't necessarily done when they come onto the island this time. What does happen this time is the glass bead becoming black. Again, previously with them going back, it had to do with, you know, too much time travel, which we know TXT have been doing a lot of, and it also might relate to why TXT seem to forget things when they separate. If the glass bead is black, it's likely too that the memories that are inside of it are shadowed, are covered in this darkness. The only reason TXT are able to hold on to these memories is because they're all together. On a special website, which was previously like centered around a lot of the TXT universe stuff, like extra pieces of their story, which was TXT The Answers, I'll link it in the description, the page for the Eternity album says this: "Think of the time when we looked up at the starry night. Moments made more breathtaking because we were together. Moments that would have been lost had I been alone. Remember, if we hold on to that moment, nothing will ever change when we are apart. Our spell will never break, our magic will endure. All of our memories will forever be with us." Memories. Moments that would have been lost had I been alone. If you actually follow this page through, you will get to a place where you can listen to a secret song that was specifically written before TXT debuted for MOA. This is called Sweat. It's a great song. If you haven't heard it, not only should you follow this link through, but it's also actually in the beginning of the Eternally music video, in the part where they're practicing the dance and stuff. However, a song is exactly how they took out the dragon on Magic Island as children. But remember, in Nap of a Star, it told us that once they separated, they forgot that they had been together and that they'd met at all, and so the secret about defeating the dragon was lost, until it is again shown to SOOBIN in the Doom's Night animation. This is also why there's such a strong focus on remembrance and just memories in general. Like the repeated phrase, "remember my name." Of course, that also might be tied to the idea of like true names, and basically whoever knows someone's true name in D&D, which TXT's story is often based off of, means that you have some semblance of control over them, although the power of it varies depending on the type of game that you're playing. So the fact that TXT are forgetting things might be related to this as well. There's no new information on that particular aspect in this music video, but it is something to keep in mind. But also keep this information about like the beads in general in mind, because this concept is going to come back again when I talk about SOOBIN's part a little later on. I also want to note that the figure that they encounter in the tent also has 2 blackened beads sitting on the table. I don't think that's a coincidence. What do you think this means, knowing what we know? Speaking of, let's talk a little bit about this figure, shall we? The Dungeon Master. The boys, now in the dark after their magic island and their blue hour ends, discover what appears to be a fortune teller's tent on the island. Inside sits a mysterious cloaked figure, which for whatever unexplained reason later is the cause of freezing the island. Let me know what you think about that. But this particular figure has so many theories attached to it. It's likely tied to the attackers that we see in the Doom's Night, probably because TXT steals their book in this video, which might leave like a lasting ripple through time. That's just my opinion. Like, what they do now is affecting both their past and their future. I mean, we did see the black glass beads on the table after all. And they also clearly have something to do with the cat. The cat is a shapeshifter of sorts, possibly a reference to the god Abraxas, like in the story Damien, which some of BTS's story is based around. And as is in all of the story music videos for TXT, the cat is cleverly hidden away in this scene, ever watchful, represented by the 2 stones that sit on the table in blue and green. If this themselves is not the cat specifically, then I believe that these cloaked figures at least either take orders from the cat or worship the cat in some way, like are a follower of some kind. But what are they? Is it an alchemist of some sort? A magician? A witch? It has been suggested that this witch-like figure that follows them in Nap of a Star and appears in the forest area are possibly the same thing. And what did we just say about blackened beads and witches, right? Is it related to the black figure that we see in BTS's magic shop? Or the librarian in G-Friend's storybooks, the one who first gifted the girls the blue butterflies? Are they a tarot card reader or a fortune teller of some kind? If we're going the Dungeons and Dragons route, which TXT does seem to be leaning towards, is this perhaps the Dungeon Master, the person in charge of the game? The setup of the table certainly seems to suggest such, as there is a 20-sided die, which is a necessity in the game Dungeons and Dragons, visible on the table, along with the book, which we later discover is the same book that TXT have in the Eternally music video. Associated somewhat with magic, this might be related to the world itself. It might hold all of the secrets. And it could be why TXT are being hinted at as cheaters, especially YEONJUN. Of course, the other things that they interact with on this table are the cards themselves. Now, these are actually blank versions of the Starseekers photo cards that came with the album. But what exactly are they? If you've seen my reaction video for this music video, you'll know that because of the setting and some previous correlations related to YEONJUN's tattoo that we see in the Freeze concept trailer, I immediately believed that these were tarot cards. I even named a couple of like possible tarot cards that like fit the situations in that video. I have not been able to come to a finite solution as to what all of the tarot cards that they're referencing might be. There's a lot of tarot cards and there's a lot of possibilities, so just note that I'm not going to be naming specific tarot cards for these situations in this video today. However, if you know tarot cards really well, you can leave your theory for like what tarot cards with which person makes sense to you. Anyways, while I do believe that the tarot cards did sort of influence the idea of the situation themselves, this actually has another meaning based off of D&D. These are quest cards. A quest card is kind of like a card that is drawn for a quick like side quest for a character to complete while they're on their way to their main objective. They can come in a variety of different formats, like as a weapon or a prompt or some sort, or even a character just asking them for it. Most commonly it's seen as a requester and like the reward that you'll get for completing the quest. And I think that this relates particularly well to TXT's situation, just sort of seeing the scenarios that they create and the effects that they cause. Sometimes the quest card is made after a quest is completed, just as a reminder card of the things that you've completed. So like next time you play a session, which might be a week or however long later, you can remember all of the quests that you apparently did. And these kinds of things might have a different outcome depending on the roll of the die. Literally. In D&D, you roll the dice for everything, even simple conversations. And in previous videos, like in the Doomsnight explanation video, I talk about how they rolled an 8 and that everything that happened there might be the results of an 8 roll. So seeing this, is this the result of another roll? And if so, I assume the roll would be kind of low, just, you know, considering the outcome. Anyways, it does kind of make sense that the Dungeon Master would be dealing these cards, since they would be the ones to give them to them if, you know, the players don't pick them up themselves on their own journey. It's likely that these are simply showing the future, again, that fortune teller aspect, but it's also possible that each scenario actually is taking place and actually overcome. It's not entirely clear because of the situation in the setting, but I think it can go either way. So just keep that in mind, like this might be some kind of foresight, or one of the many possible outcomes determined by the roll of a die, but it could also be a situation that they fight through, and that would actually make sense, wouldn't it? Because the name of these albums were Fight, Escape, and Freeze, and these are all things that the boys experience in one way or another in this music video. So, finally, let's look at the actual quests that each of these cards bring up, and the situations shown through SOOBIN's bead that lead up to, you know, the resulting quest taking place. YEONJUN. YEONJUN's photo card, which was the one that was featured in the music video, says, "What started with me must end with me." This theme is not new for YEONJUN, who often mentions that he feels guilty and like things are happening to them because of him, that it must have somehow started with him. And perhaps in this way this is true, because he is the first person to ever meet the cat and make a contract with the cat over and over again. In the Doomsnight, we know that he specifically interacted with the cat in order to save them from the situation where they are being attacked in, but this actually might be somehow related to the card that we're seeing now. When SOOBIN first sees them through the glass bead, all of those scenes are set up for what we later see in the quest cards. In the early scene, he meets up with a black dog. Later, as he's turning and walking along the train tracks, we see that the dog's eyes turn red. This particular phenomenon is most likely related to the lyrics of Blue Hour, which mentions the hour between dog and wolf. This is meant to mean that you can't distinguish between a friend and a foe. The light is fading just enough that you can't tell if the thing that you're looking at is a dog or a wolf. Ironically, it's Blue Hour outside for me right now, as the sun sets far too early. Anyways, basically you can't distinguish whether it's a friend or a foe, because in the light they both have the same shape. Red, however, is not a color that we usually associate with good things in the TXT universe. And this particular effect on the dog makes me kind of feel like it's like a demonic dog, you know, angel, devil kind of thing. And I mean, interestingly enough, we've actually seen specifically YEONJUN get kidnapped by what appears to be devils in the past. This was in their 2019 MMA show, which was an entirely shadow-based performance. Kind of like the shadows on the cards that we're looking at too. This is an indication perhaps of events that are yet to come, or perhaps events that they don't remember happening. Anyways, all of these earlier bead scenes are referenced in the quest scenes. YEONJUN in his quest appears in a desert, not unlike the scene that was in the Loser Lover music video. This is likely not a coincidence, since YEONJUN kind of seems like he thinks he needs to deal with things alone. Even his card references that. What starts with me must end with me. He thinks it's him. And what's more lonely than trekking through an endless desert on your own? It is a loser solely focused on their quest. And as I mentioned, these scenes do mirror those earlier scenes that we saw in the bead. So we see paw prints of a dog running around him, and then later we see this sandstorm which seems to take form of this same dog, and it attacks him. which causes him to use a spear that he finds in order to defend himself. His D&D character, which we've seen in the Blue Hour album, is both a paladin and a knight, both of which are offensive classes in the game. Now, paladins usually follow a specific god, and knights pledge their loyalty to, I don't know, anyone who's in power, I guess. Could be a god, could be a king. So he's very loyal in that sense, but the fact that he finds a spear in the middle of the desert kind of seems like it relates to that class of character, because both of these classes, you know, as I said, are offensive, and so they would probably use either a spear or a sword anyway. So him finding and using this just makes a lot of sense in terms of the character. Interestingly enough, while he is frightened here, he's arguably the only person who actually overcomes the quest that these cards bestow upon them. I mean, sure, the dog that's attacking him is massive and way bigger than him, but at least he has something to defend himself with this time around. I mean, YEONJUN seems to be getting attacked a lot in the story, often not surviving these attacks, but maybe we'll finally see the wolf that is trying to bring them down in the near future. TAEHYUN. TAEHYUN's Starseeker's photo card says, "If only I could find the answer, I would give you my everything." TAEHYUN has frequently been quoted as, like, trying to find the solution to all of their problems, trying to find the clue. I think he's probably aware that they're stuck, and ironically, he also ends up stuck, hanging from a tree, in this place that is described in a Naver article as the tree in the sky of sea. This, by the way, has a striking resemblance to the place that Kai appeared in the Eternally music video, so I do wonder if it has to do with that somehow. There was even a particular phrase that appeared in that music video very briefly that might relate to this situation. It says, "Find that thing that is floating in the sky." TAEHYUN's D&D profile describes him as being an adventurer, which is actually what most D&D players are considered, because they're, you know, going out and doing quests and stuff. So perhaps he, like, adventured into the sea of sky in order to find this thing. He's also a sorcerer, by the way, which, I mean, they're a magic class, so they use magic, and that's probably why he's the one who swipes the book from in front of the dungeon master in this music video. Maybe he can use it, after all. In his earlier scenes, in the glass bead, we see him sitting happily in a tree, possibly the very same tree that he ends up hanging off of in the Sea of Skies, so I'm not sure how the tree got there, or why the island itself transforms into that. It is supposed to be some kind of reflection. It is described as an island of dreams. Your dreams reflect your subconscious mind, so perhaps this is his own quest mirroring back to him, you know, something like that. Or maybe something happens to it to become like this sea of skies, like this water kind of effect. Is it perhaps related to the sinkhole that we saw on the screens at the beginning of this music video? After all, if you look closely at it, it is filled with water. We also know that sinkholes are tied to wormholes because of Jungkook, so I could see it somehow becoming relevant later. Second, are the crows themselves. Now, we've actually seen crows a few times with TXT before. They seem to be flying around kind of often, but most recently, and frankly alarmingly, we've seen a dead one in their concept photos. We've also seen another dead bird that Kai was looking after, but it doesn't seem to be a crow. However, the theme of birds dying might actually be related to why TAEHYUN, like, stealing the book and, like, seeing all of these, like, quest endings might be happening at all. Like, what better way to prevent this from happening than taking out the birds that would lead to his doom, since they are picking at his hand as he's holding on to it and is the reason he falls at the end. But more interestingly, TAEHYUN does seem to, like, really embody this quest. His photograph that came with his D&D profile shows that he has crow feathers in his hair. Actually, crows in general are just really interesting and have a lot of meaning associated with them. They're said to be able to fly between the land of the living and the land of the dead. They're often associated with death itself, and it could mean that someone who is around you might be transformed and is not to be trusted. Again, the theme of the dog and the wolf is subtly being hinted at here. And considering he's trying to solve their problems, perhaps this is foreshadowing that someone, perhaps the one who attacks YEONJUN, will also be the one to cause TAEHYUN to fall and fail his quest. And it's actually quite important that TAEHYUN learns to fly and not fall. Crows can fly, and maybe that's why he's trying to embrace them. But of course, TAEHYUN does fall in this series of events, and we see the one moment where he lands, so we know that An interesting note that I'm not sure is important or not, when he's falling, he takes on an uncannily similar form to that of the dragon falling in Doom's Night. I can't tell if this is a coincidence or not. But if it isn't, I mean, dragons also have the ability to fly. But let me know what you think about that. HUENING Kai. Kai's Starseeker's card says, I have no choice but to believe, even if we crash down. Interesting that his card seems to be talking about crashing down when we just witnessed that TAEHYUN crashes down. Again though, Kai, our angel, seems to be holding on to the idea that they can figure this out if he believes in his friends, or perhaps believes in himself. Although this is possibly a naive belief, seeing as we just keep seeing that it's not working out for them. In the glass bead scenes, he's seen riding a swan, which we've previously seen in the Japanese Blue Hour music video. So for him, it's like a representative of good times and happiness and fun that they've always had together. However, in the later scenes, we do see that his reflection that looks back at him is wrong somehow. It's actually not doing the exact same thing that we see him doing in the scene previously, as if it's a different person. The arm is in a different position. This is very related to his quest scene. Kai's quest takes place in what is reportedly called the mirror maze. Mazes in general have always been related to the mind and are used as a reflection of the self. So that's important to just remember, especially since I mentioned before it's hard to tell how real these quests are and if this is supposed to be happening in real time or if it's supposed to be a like sign for the future, a prediction. His scene opens with what appears to be math equations, but several people have actually told me it's more similar to physics and electricity. This specific diagram is actually an electric circuit, which might be related to the star. If it is for the star, that actually makes sense, because in Nap of a Star we see it flickering in and out as if the electricity is just not really working the way it should, like it's broken. He's even wearing a necklace that references the gear that we see in the star in that music video. The lyrics of Frost even reference that the star's light is out. Gone without a trace, the pulsing starlight. So maybe this is him trying to find a way to essentially wire it back together again so that it can shine for them. Kai is a mystic, one of the highest classes of magic in D&D. So if anyone is somehow able to, I don't know, magic the star back together, it would probably be him. But he's also a bard, a singer, and as we saw in the Doom's Night, the song and the star are tied together very closely and is part of their power, and of course that might be a driving force for him. But there's other things going on in this scene here. Not only is it shown that there's another version of Kai, a mirror version, which historically is associated with the belief that, you know, your mirror self is your opposite, or perhaps the evil version of yourself. But we see that our Kai, the angel, actually chases after this mirror self. He is clearly unaccustomed to the maze of mirrors and falls behind. At the end of the scene, the version of himself that escapes is not the angel version that we started with, since we do see the angel reflected in one of the fragments of the mirror where he's trapped. This can actually possibly explain why Kai's wings previously inexplicably changed from angel wings to devil ones. But if you can believe it, it actually goes deeper than that still, because this contains a direct reference to the film Black Swan. In Black Swan, the main character is competing for a part in Swan Lake, which is a ballet performance. In it, the part that she ends up getting is required to play both the black and the white swan, which matches really well with Kai's situation, I must say. However, in the film, it's important to mention that she essentially descends into madness as she takes on this role. She was perfect for the white swan part, but associating herself with the black swan is kind of difficult. Again, like Kai is in this song, if that laugh is any indication. And there's also a lot of themes of doppelgangers, and the idea that your understudy or alternate could actually take over for you. Usually this is someone who's cast in case something happens to the main dancer, so they'll dance in their place during the performance, say if they get injured or sick. But they can, in theory, replace you. And spoiler alert for this film, I'm going to talk about the ending. She spends a lot of the film hallucinating. She imagines that her alternate is out for her part, and there are several times where she experiences events that, like, even us as viewers aren't sure if it really happened or not. And then at the very end, her alternate, who she believes has been after her role the entire time, attacks her, and so she stabs her with a piece of a broken mirror. She continues to dance her role and then slowly begins to realize that the person that she stabbed was herself. She delivers an amazing dance performance exactly the way that she wanted to, but at the end of the film, it's kind of implied that she dies for this performance. However, in a more metaphorical sense of it, you can see it as the white swan, the innocence in her dying, and she's becoming and embodying the black swan that she had so much trouble with in the beginning of the film. She's sort of grown into herself. And it should be noted that Natalie Portman, the actress, doesn't even believe that she dies at the end. It's kind of up to interpretation. But a lot of this is really similar to TXT, whose own story is about growing up and changing. So Kai's destruction of the reflection that couldn't keep up and that was the angelic is maybe a way for him to show that he's destroying that part of himself in order to become something else, which again explains that shift from the angel wings to the devil ones. Many people believe that Kai was swapped out for his doppelganger, and that's a definite possibility, seeing as we've seen what is most likely him and BEOMGYU fighting over the book in the Eternally music video, and also him being trapped behind a mirror in the glass in the Doom's Night animation. But I think it's important to note that in Black Swan, the movie, the swap never happened. Not for real, anyway. It was always just her, irrevocably changed by her circumstances. So perhaps we're just witnessing the moment that Kai leaves his innocence and childhood behind, and it's not a genuine swap. But what do you think? After all, we're not sure if this is a future event or not. SOOBIN. SOOBIN's Starseeker's card says, "There's something that I have to endure alone for eternity." Let's come back to that. SOOBIN didn't really have much of an earlier scene. He was the one who was seeing everyone else's memories in the glass bead. Although we do get that scene later where the bead blackens, which I already talked about. In his quest, SOOBIN is standing in the alleged burning ancient city, according to, again, that Naver article. I think it's important to note that I cannot tell if this Naver article has gotten information from HYBE themselves, or if this is the, flair of the author, because I don't know where the city part comes in. However, I was able to find one article written in English that also referenced these different locations. So it does make me think maybe these names were in a press pack that HYBE gave with music videos for people to write articles about. But that's unconfirmed, so just know it might be a city, it might not be a city, but I'm pretty sure we can all agree that it is definitely burning. It does look kind of Greek or Roman in design though, so anyways, we also see a burning rocking horse, which, when looking through that glass bead again, SOOBIN sees the empty silhouette of a child. Remember, we've established that the bead shows memories, meaning that this child itself is definitely a memory. The difference is that this memory has no details. Unlike the previous ones that we've seen, this is simply a shadow. Like all the details that make it up have been forgotten. As I've said before, TXT has these moments in their past that they can't remember. In Nap of a Star, it was said that when they separated, they forgot each other and the promise that they made to the star. And in Eternally, when SOOBIN went back in time and saw baby HUENING Kai from when they were playing as children, he cried. Is this because this was a memory that he'd forgotten and now recalled? This brings us back to his card. There's something that I have to endure alone for eternity. In the Eternity concept trailer, SOOBIN was shown growing distant from the others, as if they didn't even remember him and couldn't hear him. Rather than specifically forget him though, I remember if it's because he's the only one to remember those specific memories, especially of their rewinds. This is possibly remembered by him through the dreams that he has, as shown in Eternally and drawn on the board in Runaway, or through the use of the glass bead, which we see break here, which might actually cause you to lose those memories. Or maybe it's tied to the idea that a bad roll in D&D, like from the dice that are on the table or that SOOBIN picks up in the Eternally music video, might lead to a bad ending where everything burns and he's unable to save their memories from destruction. The child he sees in this memory, by the way, has the possibility of being 3 people. First, it could be himself as a child, trying to obtain the childhood memories that were stolen from him. Second, it could be YEONJUN, because we've seen YEONJUN in relation to horses a lot recently, and the whole burning idea ties in really well with the idea that they're moving on from childhood into adulthood. Finally, it could be Kai, since we've seen SOOBIN with a child Kai before. And I mean, the burning could be the same thing for actually all 3 of them. It also might not be a specific child, and just the more general idea of childhood, as a reference to them forgetting parts of it. SOOBIN's D&D character is an archer and a ranger, here, both of which obviously attack from a distance. But beyond his outfit here, which does seem to feature those characteristics, he doesn't really do anything to specifically embody that. BEOMGYU. BEOMGYU's Starseeker's card says, "Not even darkness lasts forever." We don't really get to see a lot of what BEOMGYU was doing early on, besides a scene of him later finding the key. When we definitely do see him, though, is the moment that he realizes that their blue hour, their magic hour, has ended and darkness has now fallen. This feels like a callback to music videos like Blue Hour, where he sees the sun set. And he seems unhappy at the end of the music video, stepping over their fairy tale and their friendship, realizing that this had to come to an end. However, on his card, he gives us an important reminder, giving us the slightest hint of hope. Something that he was associated with really early on in the Star version of the Dream Chapter albums, although this hope slowly seems to fade once they get to the Eternity album. But it is a reminder that the night, the darkness, and all forms of struggle will eventually pass. That despite the feeling that it will go on forever for an eternity, it will eventually end and the sun will rise again. BEOMGYU's quest takes place in what is called the Fractal Cave. It was likely titled this because of its repetitive nature, as a fractal is a never-ending pattern. But of course, at some point, it has to end, right? This cave is interesting because BEOMGYU was underground the first time that we saw him in Nap of a Star, where he was peeking out into the light. Not even darkness lasts forever. Interestingly, we can actually see what appears to be water here. Either he is underwater somehow, or the cave is somehow upside down and he's on the ceiling, which is not as wild as you think it is. And I actually think either option is entirely possible. It is Magic Island after all. Or perhaps again, it's related to the sinkhole that we saw, which again, looked like it had water in it. BEOMGYU is in an infinite loop, and it kind of feels like how TXT are in a loop themselves as well. And in fact, even the Frost music video starts the way that it ends, just as if it was part of this loop. He actually has the key already when he enters this cave. It's on his neck. Although it does look like he takes the key out of the box. But again, it's just looping, so perhaps he's actually using the key to unlock the box. Because it might just be a part of the loop, that he takes the key that he has, that he finds the key that he uses. Regardless, time is working really strangely here. It's not in a linear fashion. This is the Chaos chapter, after all. The key that he's holding seems similar to the TXT The Answers key for the Eternity album. I don't think it's the exact same design, but it just reminds me of the fact that there was a key there. And the Eternity version of the albums actually have a lock and key on them. Don't have the key right now, though. I just think it's kind of funny that he's pulling out a key which was associated with the Eternity version, but he himself seems to be trapped in an eternity. BEOMGYU seems like mostly trapped in the same moment of time, and the lyrics at this part in the song actually reflect that as well. Fateful shipwreck, suspended time, within it I'm dying. The part with shipwreck could also reference this idea of them being underwater at this point. It's also possible that this box is a reference to Pandora's box. It was a gift that was actually a curse, and the idea that once something has been opened and unleashed, all the bad comes spilling out of it. Once they open up magic, everything comes out with it. Of course, in the original myth, the one thing that remains in Pandora's box is something that we associate specifically with BEOMGYU. The thing that his photo card seems to be trying to incite. Hope. Everything bad was released into the world, leaving only behind hope, which never got the chance to flourish. Remember, the key came with the Eternity album, and the Eternity version of the album was the version that seemed like he had no hope left, saying everyone is on their own, believing they will be abandoned. He also seems to lose hope. Coincidence? TXT, after realizing that the Dungeon Master has begun to freeze everything and escaping with the magic book, emerge from the wormhole back onto Tuksum, bringing the book back with them to reality. Interestingly, at this point, if you look at the wormhole behind them, the view of the island is actually upside down. We've seen their world upside down before. As I mentioned, even BEOMGYU's Fractal Cave might have been upside down, and we've seen it in Runaway. It does seem to be tied directly to references within the Magic Island, possibly because it's a dream? But I do present a question for you. Why is it only when they're leaving the island that it's upside down? The scene where they first go into the island, it's right side up still. So what changes. I also want to mention that there's also a distinct lack of the presence of the ghost or Moa in this music video, who in the lyrics are supposedly the ones who help unfreeze the island and melt TXT's frozen hearts. They're just absent entirely. I don't see them at all. I don't really even see any hints of them at all. Like, I'm like, oh, that could possibly be referencing. I don't see anything. We got a hint of the cat. We got a hint of their magic, their time travel, their magic island is there. Everything is consistently there. We even saw the witch, which we've never seen before, but that other element that has been fairly consistent is just gone. And that's not the only thing that's missing from this video, by the way. If you listen to the original song, you probably know that it ends with a goodbye, which is cut from the music video. So is this really the end, or are TXT waiting for Moa to save them and their magic island? Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video and gained a little bit of insight into the music video off of it. I know it took me a really long time to make, but anyways, if you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe with notifications turned on so that you're notified every single time I post a new video. All of my social media is linked in the description below, and of course I want to give a shout out to my patrons over on Patreon. Thank you guys so much for your support. As it is, thank you guys so much for watching. Stay sunny, my friends. Bye! Hi, just one really quick thing that I want to add. My friend LameGameHero currently has an ongoing project where she's creating tarot cards for TXT. If you're an artist and you want to participate and create a tarot card, I will leave the link in the description. It's the first link in the description. So please help us fill up the deck. I'm doing some cards as well, so I hope to see your art there. Anyways, thanks guys. See you!